Welcome to the 5 à 7 podcast. I'm your host, Amie Watson. On today's episode, I'll be chatting with Didier Souillat, the CEO of Time Out Market. The Time Out Markets are gourmet food halls located in major cities around the world, and if you've never been to one, they are massive. When the 40,000-foot Time Out Market Montreal opened back in November, it was a huge and highly anticipated event. It's the only Time Out Market in Canada and features communal tables in a giant vaulted ceiling space on a top floor section of the Eaton Centre shopping mall downtown. Other cities include Lisbon, Miami, Boston, Chicago, and New York. The Montreal market has more than 20 kiosks from some of the city's top restaurants, a large bar area with natural wines, local beers, and specialty cocktails courtesy of bartenders from some of the city's top bars, and the space comes complete with a demo kitchen for cooking classes. The concept encourages diners to grab dishes from multiple kiosks, which you used to pick up when your buzzer went off. So, for example, you could get a gluten-free shaved cauliflower and mushroom salad from Food Chain, a braised pork shank risotto with foie gras at Le Club Chasse et Pêche for a main dish, and an ice cream from Dalla Rose for dessert. And everything seemed to be going great, even with two other gourmet food halls opening in the city mere months apart. But that was before COVID-19. That's when the markets all shut down, and now Montreal and Lisbon have reopened, but the US locations are still closed. Despite this, the company's website says that new Dubai and London locations will open in the next 3 years. Some might say that's pretty optimistic for a food hall, a space that was invented originally to break down restaurant barriers rather than install plexiglass. And even now that the market has officially reopened here in Montreal, you still can't get that salad, that risotto, or that ice cream because not all of the chefs have come back yet. And when they do come back, how soon will customers return? And already some customers have been returning, but I don't know how many because I haven't been to the market myself yet. It is a very large space. There's the modern air filtration system, there's contactless payment, and maybe it's even an opportunity since lines might not be as long as they were before. It was really hard to get into the market before, and it had that feeling of excitement. So I'm curious to hear what Time Out has been doing as a company, but most importantly, if that excitement is still there, that kind of tangible electric current that goes through a cool space, it's packed with people all walking around, mingling and enjoying good food. So hopefully with the answers, here's Didier Souillat. Good morning or good afternoon, Didier. You're joining us from London today, I believe?
That's right. Good morning, Amy.
Well, I'm very happy to not be drinking alcohol with you because it's a little bit early for me. But since it is the 5 à 7 podcast, we usually start with a drink. So what are you drinking today?
Well, I thought of you and I didn't want you to start being an alcoholic on my behalf at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
So I switched to green tea.
Okay, lovely. Do you have a favorite green tea?
Not especially. It's just that I don't usually drink green tea after 6 or 7 p.m. at night. I will drink rosé. But for the sake of this call today, I said, yeah, green tea sounds good. And I like green tea a lot.
Good. Well, I appreciate it. I'm also drinking tea today. I do herbal teas a lot. I do tisane. So I have an anise hyssop tea. I don't know if you know anise hyssop, but it's a plant that has a licorice flavor. And so it has that licorice tinge. And I had some dried from my garden last year. So I wanted to make sure that it was equal to your green tea. I don't think you can cheers with tea, but I appreciate being here. Yeah. Okay, so normally with this podcast, I know the people that I'm speaking to or I've interviewed them before, and I know people in the Montreal Time Out Market, but we've never spoken before. So I was thinking maybe we could start with the lightning round of this podcast, which usually goes horrendously, but is usually very fun. How do you feel about that?
Okay, we're going to start with the horrendous part. Great.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hopefully the easiest part. And maybe it'll be a better lightning round because we're starting with it. So my first question then is for your favorite comfort food. What's your favorite comfort food?
I'll tell you something. I love skirt steak. Yeah, skirt steak, French style. With a lot of shallots and a great red wine sauce. Really, really simple. And in the UK, it is just starting to come out. Nobody really knows it, and it's really cheap. And you get some really, really great quality skirt steak. And I can feed the entire family with that, and the boys actually, boys love that as well.
That's good to know. In Montreal, it's pretty popular. I don't think we can get it quite as cheaply as we used to. So maybe next time it's allowed to come to London, I'll be looking for steak. So then I know you like more savory things, but sweet or salty?
Oh, salty.
Salty,
definitely. Always? I'm not a very sweet guy. Not many desserts. I'm not good at them either. I can't do them very well. So no.
That makes it easy. Okay, so Time Out is based in London, as you are. What was the first restaurant that you went back to when restaurants reopened there? Or have you been?
Actually, I went back to the restaurant last Sunday for the first time. And I was on the King's Road in London, and I was with one of my sons, and we went Japanese. We went to Steak and Sushi
Mm.
on the King's Road, and I like the brand. They're pretty good, and it was sushi. Yeah, I used to live in Japan quite a long time ago, for many years, and I've got this love of Asian food and Japanese food in general, and for lunch, sushi, sashimi,
Mm.
and bento and miso soup is fantastic.
So good. And something you probably can't make at home. I think that's something that people are excited to get back to now that they can go to restaurants again. Speaking of making at home or eating out, what will you be having for dinner tonight?
Evening time, quite, when I'm not eating out, which is the first time in a long time where normally because I travel all the time and I open
Yeah.
markets and I try restaurants, I'm not usually eat at home very often. So I've enjoyed those past few months of being able to do that. So in the evening, it's quite light. It's a salad and probably just some seared fish. I have
Mm.
some scallops in the fridge, so scallops and a bit of lettuce and a bit of olive oil and a bit of good balsamic, and that's it, simple.
Simple. Yep. It's great. If you were going to go to a socially distanced dinner party, probably al fresco, what would you bring?
Rosé wine.
Do you have a particular one?
I love Les Houbles. I don't know if you know it. I love the rosé ones. Okay, the paler the better. From Provence, and the Les Houbles rosé. They have the Secret de Les Houbles. It's a great vineyard in the south of France, and they're they are organic, and they're also biodynamic. And I think you can drink a little bit too much without having a headache. Okay, so it's a really fantastic wine.
Good to know. What did you learn to cook during quarantine? You said you're doing simple fish often or salads.
I kind of took a recipe from Le Bernardin in New York. Not that I think that I can do Bernardin type of dishes, but it looked really simple. And it's monkfish tail, and it's a good monkfish tail. Quite simple. In the oven for 20 minutes. But the part of it is that he put chorizo on it.
Oh.
So I'm like, ooh, okay, that sounds interesting. So it's very simple. Great monkfish tail, chorizo on top of it, some fava beans and a white wine stock reduction,
Mm.
and 20 minutes and a few tomatoes. I put a few cherry tomatoes in it
Mm-hmm.
for the umami taste,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
and simple, and that was it, and an olive oil, of course, that was it. Simple, and it's so simple. It looks gorgeous, and yeah, it tastes good. So certainly, I'm starting to do that a bit too often for the moment because it
But
works.
it is brilliant. Yeah, a little bit spicy, a little bit savory. You got the nice acidity from the tomatoes in there and the reduction. What more could you want?
No, exactly.
So I feel like that's a nice kind of French Mediterranean style, and you love the Provence wines. But I don't know if that translates into your favorite food city in the world, being somewhere in that region.
Oh, actually, I mean, yeah, I was born in Aix-en-Provence, so I love everything Mediterranean, and I love olive oil and all this. But um, I spent a lot of time in Asia, and whether I was living in Japan or in Hong Kong or in Singapore, and when I mean, favorite city is difficult because okay, I love London, right? I mean, in terms of everything is there. I
Yeah.
love New York in terms of everything is there and beyond. I also love Shanghai. I really also enjoy Shanghai a lot. So I can't say one because I love traveling and I need to continue discovering things. Between those three cities are my three favorite cities in the world for food. That's for sure.
Do you have a favorite restaurant that you're dying to get back to in any of those
Oh
other
God,
cities?
it's in Mumbai. Okay,
Mm.
it's in Mumbai. It's a restaurant called Trishna, and I discovered that restaurant before it was famous, probably about 50. Yeah, I mean something stupid like 15 years ago. and I was invited in Mumbai by protective partners for lunch, and I don't know, something happened in my mouth during that lunch that I couldn't forget. And you know what? We finished the dinner and everything else. And you know something? I've not done this since, but I went back for dinner. I went back on my own
Back-to-back
for dinner
meals.
because I wanted more. I wanted more. So obviously it's an Indian tandoori restaurant, but out of this world. And since then they've opened in London. It has a Michelin star in London. They've opened a few more in Mumbai, but the original is still the best. The best. You know, the water's not the same in London. The milk is not buffalo milk, so you can't do this. It's not the same. So I haven't been back for about 4 years now in India, and usually this is the first place I go to every time I go back.
Okay. And so normally you are traveling. That concludes my lightning round questions, which was not a lightning round, as you see, but a fun way to start the podcast, I feel. So you're normally traveling a fair bit then, and with COVID, I guess you're pretty much settled in London. What's your schedule looking like coming up, and how strange has that been for you?
I haven't been home as much in the past 10 years, and it's a good thing in a sense. But it's very difficult for me to be able to plan. And normally that's what I do. I plan. So I'm planning reopenings from my office in London, in South London, reopening Montreal, reopening Lisbon, reopening New York and Boston and so forth from this office where normally I've always been there with the teams and making those things happen. So I trust my team immensely. But for me, I'm not able to plan. I have no idea when I'll be able to fly back to the US or fly back to Montreal. For the moment, even Lisbon, I can't go to because for the moment you have to go in quarantine on both sides.
Right.
So yeah, I could go on vacation in Spain, but I don't have any markets in Spain for the moment. So so it's really frustrating not knowing what the next few months are going to be.
Right. So you just did reopen in Montreal, which as the city slowly reopens here, I mean, I can describe a little bit to you about the kind of anxiety, but also excitement that's come to pass here, and issues with bars reopening and not social distancing, and now trying to, regulate things so that everybody's as safe as possible. I know you've taken some important measures and safety measures. You're following government regulations, Santé Montréal's protocols, and you're a very spacious market, but it is indoors. So has that made it harder to reattract clients, and how many people are coming back?
With 40,000 square feet of space, you make social distancing a little bit easier for everybody, right?
It's true.
So I mean, with the space we've got and the ceilings we've got, we started with 600 seats. We're down to 300. It's still a big number, right? It's still a big number, but 300 seats and 40,000 square feet, the 6 feet in between everyone, there's plenty of space. So it's not of course, in terms of people that are coming back, I'm going to tell you right away, not enough.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how would it be? I wouldn't be the only one in the world jumping for. No. It's not. There's not enough. But again, when you think about it's where it is located, in the city center, right? Nobody's commuting anymore for the moment, and there's no office workers working either.
No
Nobody's
tourists.
coming back to the office.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, also the street is a mess, right? The constructions are,
Yeah.
So you put all this together, and the fear factor that hasn't left yet. Let's be honest, not easy. Now, what we're seeing though is we have everything from I don't know. There's still a few tourists around. I don't know how they make it there, but probably from
tourists,
Canadian tourists.
Yeah, Ontario.
But we've got families. We've got a lot of regulars. So yes, it's a start. We've been open a week, and we've seen week on week really strong increases. But we're far from what we were when we opened. Let's be honest. And
you're at capacity. You had to hold people out then.
Yeah, we didn't have enough space. The funny thing is, actually, we had ordered more seats that just came in, and we said keep them for the moment, please.
Storage.
But nothing's going to come back to normal in this part of town before September anyway. Before people come back to work, before people come commuting again and start going back to the office, and the fear factor starts going away. That's what we hope.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're positive. And opening was really, really important for a step. We're open, we're trading. We got some good chefs with us, and that are part of this venture.
Yeah. So it should just mention what you have done with the space. So it is a large space. You have air filtration systems and new plexiglass partitions on tables to separate diners. You have contactless ordering via the Time Out Montreal app. So people can order through the app, but can they still order at the counters directly?
Absolutely. Look, Amy, we're giving people the choice. You want to speak to the chef behind a plexiglass, you can do so. You want to get close, get information, you can do so. You want to come in and sit down, download the app, place an order, you can do that as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So the filtering system we've put in is called a MERV 13 filter. It's a hospital grade thing. I mean, we've done everything we could here to protect that and to filter as much as we can the air in our space. Yeah. Realize it's how big it changes the air every 8 minutes.
Are you doing this? Yeah. Are you doing the same thing in all your markets?
Absolutely.
So you have the same safety measures in the U.S. and in Lisbon and everywhere.
We had to implement some already had. When we build a new market like Chicago, we actually have a UV system already included in the extract system because it was a new build, right? Montreal was not a new build. It's been around for, the Eaton Center. So what we make sure is to put all the filtering system the past 3 months ahead of the opening.
Right. That is a huge expense for you as a business. I know some smaller businesses, independent restaurants, is what I've been hearing throughout this crisis, are really suffering right now. And restaurant groups are doing a little bit better because they have more money behind them. They maybe own buildings or they have, negotiating power. So it's really good to hear that you have some money behind you to put into those kinds of investments, and you're still planning, to operate the markets as well as you can.
Amy, we've got some nice shareholders. We have some shareholders that believe in the future of this concept and in the brand, right? We're like everybody else. We had cash flow issues by the bucket. Like everybody else. We're a landlord and a tenant. Yeah. And when we don't trade, our tenants don't pay rent. Zero. We don't force them to pay rent. Doesn't mean that we don't. Okay, so we had, like everybody else, cash flow issues, and because the brand is strong and our concept is strong, our shareholders had believe in it and support us, and we might have to get some more funds to sustain the concept and investing in the concept going forward.
Yeah. And I'm not sure how much you can say about the markets, but you're bringing back the chefs in waves. And obviously it's the chefs, who will have more to say about that, and I can contact them directly. But you have 8 concepts that have already come back in Montreal, so 8 restaurant kiosks. And do you know when the next wave of chefs will be coming back to the Montreal market?
When they're ready. So it's really, the ones joining us now, they're ready. Mm-hmm. They've secured their brick and mortar, and they want to come back and great.
Yeah.
And 8 is a good number for the moment. Opening with 16 now would mean really diluting, I think, the takings of everybody for them.
Yeah, that's true, because you're just not getting as many people going. So
exactly,
the people that are going. Yeah.
So you go step by step, and some of the chefs say, "Hey, I'm ready." Some of the ones are like, "Okay, I need to take care of my brick and mortar first." Understood? Do that. When you're ready, come. And of course, we communicate with them clearly, and we tell them what kind of takings they can take, so they have an idea. And we're managing the hours. We're managing the hours of opening. And we've got to, like everybody else, they've got to reduce rent. They've got to reduce rent until things get better.
Yeah. So the 8 that are open now, it's Marussan, the Red Tiger, Paul Toussaint, Emilio, Moleskin,
Nevados,
Romados, and the
yeah,
Timeout Bar, the beer bar, the wine bar are open, right? Those are the ones?
correct. And the cooking school,
Right.
as well as the as a small retail shop that we have.
Okay, so they can do socially distanced cooking classes. Is that the
And
plan?
they do. There was one yesterday actually,
Okay.
that went really, really well.
Okay.
So people want to get out. I mean, cooking
Yeah,
class.
obviously.
Look at that.
Yeah.
They want. I think people want to want to get back out.
Mhm.
They want to break from this lockdown life and reclaim their areas. And go back and discover and enjoy the incredible food that they were used to, and
Mhm.
support the local chefs.
And then some of them were doing delivery even when the market was closed, but they probably weren't doing the actual cooking in the market because they don't have their main spaces there, but they were advertising that they were doing delivery. Is that the case?
Look, we've never done delivery before in our markets, in none of our markets, and we will be doing delivery from Time Out Market, from the chefs working in Time Out Market as of Monday.
Oh,
This
great.
coming
So
Monday.
it will be brought together under the Timeout banner for the delivery, or it's the
Yeah,
individual
it's
restaurants?
DoorDash. No, it's DoorDash. It's under each, the pickup point, it will be Time Out Market.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the chefs working, cooking in Time Out Market can actually sell from Time Out Market onto the DoorDash platform.
Oh, okay. Great. Yeah. So you kind of set that up and facilitated that for them.
Yeah, of course. It's originally when we opened and with the business we had, we never thought that the chefs could do a delivery platform on top of the sales they were doing during the day. I mean, those
Right.
are small kiosks, right?
And they
So
were
let's
packed. You could barely get in there.
so let's spoke to the customers you have in front of you. But we're not going to take it away. But now it's a good time to put this in. It's an additional source of revenue for them,
Yeah.
and we're giving them, and they have the cooking facility right there. So sweat the asset as much as you can.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, take advantage of it. And I assume every customer who comes in has to wear a mask now because of the government's new rules on wearing masks in public. Yep.
Absolutely.
And the bar is open as normal. It's a 6,300 square foot bar, I believe.
It's a
Right?
big bar. You know how
Yeah.
it is. You have to. It's part of the space, but it's separated because of the laws and licensing laws in Montreal.
Right, because if you have food and if you're drinking, you have to eat your food in the bar, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, when we saw, I was always wondering how it was going to work, but
Mm.
actually, it's never been an issue. Um, we have about 140 seats left in the bar now with the distanciation. So basically, we had nearly 250, 280 before that. So there was plenty enough space for you want to drink alcohol, you can go to the bar, order your food, eat there. You don't want to drink alcohol, go into the main hall, which and actually everything was full. So it worked out okay. So the three bars are open, but of course you also have the non-alcoholic bars on the other side,
Yeah.
which are also quite popular.
Yep, it's true. And I could just drink all of the melted ice creams from Dollar Rose. That would be wonderful.
Oh, they're wonderful. They're not opening right now, but it's up to them when they come back. But they're wonderful.
Yeah, it's nice to have a downtown location of their St. Henry shop. Are the prices the same, or have they been adjusted during COVID at all?
No,
All the
same
same.
prices. Same prices. We can't increase them. That's for sure. It's tight for everybody. And we like most partner chefs have more cost. Have more cost to manage this process of the cleaning and everything else that we have to do. But you can't increase your prices. There's no way. It's tough for everybody.
Yeah, well, and for consumers too. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So you're planning to reopen in the U.S. sometime soon. Do you have any idea when that will be in different cities?
Yeah, it hasn't been announced yet, okay, but it's coming soon. So we're going to start with Boston most probably. We're nearly ready, and I think we're going to be announcing this. If it's not this week, it's going to be Monday. Okay, so that's coming really, really, really soon. Boston is ready now because, yeah, the virus under control. The R rate is under control. The chefs are ready to come back. And we've managed to put about 250 seats outside.
Mm.
And then we'll open with New York, where we have roughly the same amount of outdoor seating in New York. And for Chicago and Miami, we're going to have to wait until we know more. Florida is not in a good place for the moment.
Yeah. And what about the colder places like Chicago and New York, where you can't have your patios open year round? Are you already thinking about fall, what you're going to do?
Well, I just hope that indoor dining will be allowed by fall when it comes to New York. Mm-hmm. It's true. It's very true. So, I mean, the governor is doing what he's got to do, and he's controlling, and it's just New York is as safe as it comes for the moment. And I'm sure he's doing the right thing. And when he thinks is right, he'll allow indoor dining. I mean, 50% of indoor dining will be just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's. I mean, if it's another huge space, you can make that work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what about Lisbon? What's it like there now that it's reopened?
It's like Montreal. It's not what we want it to be, but it's stunning. It's looking great. We're full. I mean, all the tenants came back. They wanted to come back. Right. So we're absolutely full. And with tourists are starting to come slowly but slowly. Lisbon, how do you call that? On the outskirts of Lisbon, there's some lockdowns happening, which kind of a bad PR around Europe. And people think Lisbon itself is not locked down. The neighbors around Lisbon are. So tourists are coming back really slowly, where we think that August is going to look more positive. But it's a slow process. Again, we have, it's a 75,000 square feet space. So can you imagine? You got plenty of space.
Right. And what can you tell me about the opening dates for the new markets in Dubai and London? I know the website still says that they're planning to open in 2020, 2021, respectively. I'm not sure how much you can give away.
No, we have moved Dubai to early 2021. All right. So Dubai was supposed to open at the end of this year. And because it's very simple, we have our deal with Emaar. We're working, it's a great management agreement, like in Montreal, great partners. Our curation is done in Dubai. The chefs are really eager, but because of COVID, we lost 3 months of construction time. We had to stop building. So we're going to be open early in the new year in 2021, which is the high season in Dubai. Anyhow. And also the World Expo was postponed in Dubai till next year, which was supposed to open in November. So all those things combined, so we're open early 2012 in Dubai, and London, we're pushing a bit further to early 2022. For the London thing. Again, we're part of a huge development project in Waterloo. Great partners again. There's been delays due to COVID on building, and it's such a big concept, big development. We need to open when it's the right time to do so.
Yeah, and I'm sure that'll be a big celebration for you to open one at home.
Oh God, we've been waiting for so long.
Yeah.
It's been quicker to open in the US than to do something great in London. It's taken a while. It's taken a lot,
Yeah, I bet you're wishing right now, oh, I wish that we could open this one now. You wouldn't have to travel. You could have a celebration, but it's also
They have the same problems in London that you have in Montreal.
Yeah.
The commuters are not commuting. The businesses are not opening. The offices are not happening. Yeah. So anybody who's working who's trading near a station or in a central hub of commuting is suffering.
Yeah. So you don't think there's a point in opening something new now? I mean, some restaurants are opening now. Do you think that's a tricky sell, or is it really dependent on the location and who their clientele is?
Well, I mean, I haven't been to Montreal again for a few months, but I see what's happening in London for the moment. The restaurants which are neighborhood restaurants, which are out of the city centers, are doing okay-ish, And the ones who are dependent on high footfall traffic, on business lunches, those are not opening or closed or will never reopen until this goes away.
Yeah. So my thought on those downtown ones is, well, it's a question. Do you think it's an opportunity to go to those places then, if you otherwise wouldn't, because you couldn't get a reservation or it was just too busy all the time?
No, this is what we created with Time Out Market, right? When we try to put most of the best chefs of the city into one space, so people can, you can't. If you're a tourist and you're visiting for 1 week, there's no way you're going to be able to get in the same week a reservation at Touquet, a reservation at Claude Pelletier's place, and a reservation at Charles Antoine. It's not possible. But with the markets, you could go, and even if you're local, you could go and say, "Oh, I try this, I try that, I tried it." And if you're local, you say you've tasted the risotto from Claude from Chasse et Pêche. His risotto with foie gras, which is absolutely insane, And then you go, okay, I want to go and try the real thing. I want to go back and So it works both ways. What we're doing for the moment is this, the staycation in the US and in Canada is quite known, staycation. So we're doing a tastecation, right? So you can't go anywhere, but get your taste buds going, go to the market, and you'll still be able to travel, right? Because, hey, you got a Portuguese chicken, right? You got Haitian with poule toussaint. You got your red tiger Vietnamese. You got marusen Japanese. You got your pizza. You got with moleskine and the pasta with il miglio. So you can still travel, doing your staycation, tastecation by going to the markets. I think it's quite a fun way to put it, and support your local guys. Local heroes. That's super important.
Efficiently too, because like you said, you can find so many of them in that one center, so you can support 3 local businesses in one meal if you want to do appetizer, main, and dessert. And so do you think, what is my last question? I'm kind of curious, what do you think the future of food halls is for the next year and then the next 5 years?
There's been a lot of publications out there. I don't know if you read this. There was a big report from Cushman and Wakefield. There was a few blogs. There was a big report from CNN, and all saying the same thing, that food halls have a future, have a strong future, and it goes from being a refuge for battered restaurants, the industry. Because the other thing about those guys that have closed, we've got a home for them, right? Sometimes we're their second home, but some people will not reopen. Some people will close down, and it's a nice way to go back in a restaurant business without to bring in cash. You just got to show up, and start cooking. So this is a model that is, I think, from a tenant perspective, from a restaurateur perspective, has a lot of interest, because you don't need to bring cash with you.
But you do need an offsite kitchen, no?
Nope.
No, you don't? You can just be one set up in the market.
Exactly. You can. They are big enough, and there's enough equipment in there to do whatever you want. Now, you're not going to do a 15-course menu in there, but if you limit, like we did, 6 to 8 items, right? And in big volumes, and it's big volumes, as you've seen.
Yeah.
So you can cook everything from scratch over there. The second thing is, it's an alternative for developers who bet everything on their anchor store being retail shops, right? This is not happening. We've seen the closed shops going bust. So suddenly we're in big demand for big developers and that need their anchor store. Anchor store is going more and more as being food and beverage, but the food hall has a big part to play in that as well. So, I think it's got a strong future, from the demand I'm getting globally on that, from how we can help bringing back restaurateurs into the business, the ones who've lost everything. And we want to help. We want, I was always saying to the guys that, look, if we have one of our chefs that goes bust, doesn't matter, he's lost his thing, make sure we keep the ones we have in the market there.
Yeah, definitely, especially those ones. I think I think that's a really interesting point. I didn't think about how you could really be the hub of a shopping center or a development like you are in Montreal, as opposed to retail shops. But of course, yeah, you would be more in demand. Then the question just is, can you get enough money to open all of these places, and how quickly? What's the time frame, kind of thing?
Well, you know, Amy, we operate a bit like a hotel company, right? So a hotel group, when they started, they invested and they created their own concept, right? So they opened 4, 5, 6 hotels. And then they showed that they did this really, really well. And then what happened afterwards? They went into management agreements. They had hotel owners want a company to manage their assets. We're doing the same thing. So we've hired, we spent our money last year and the year before opening Lisbon, opening Miami, opening New York, opening Boston, opening Chicago, and proving that the concept works, that we have great reviews, that our chefs are happy. And then we've signed our first management agreement with Ivanhoe Cambridge.
Right.
They were our first partners where we are managing this asset on their behalf. We've helped with the design, we are managing it entirely, we're curating it, but they paid for it.
Which takes a lot of the weight off your shoulders.
Exactly. So the same thing with Dubai. Dubai is also a management agreement with our partners in Emaar. And we've announced another management agreement in Prague, opening in 2023. And a few more will be announced. And that's one of the ways as well that we can develop ourselves globally without to have to bring millions of dollars of cash every time we want to open something. It's not sustainable for the moment.
No, of course not. I mean, the delivery companies too. I always see like the economics of that, where they're buying more, acquiring more companies and acquiring more companies, and I'm like, where does the money come from for all this? It's so scary.
Shareholders that have a very strong belief in that is going to work.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that your model seems to be much more sustainable. So that's
Has to be.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining me today. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. And I'm really excited to get back to the market and hope that you can help a lot of these chefs and they can help you mutually benefit.
Absolutely. It's a partnership, Amy. Thank you so much for your time and having me on the show. Really enjoy it.
Thanks for listening to the 5 à 7 podcast. I'm your host, Amie Watson, and I'll be back next week with another chat with another interesting person that you may or may not have heard of. If you're watching the video version of this podcast and you want to see more, you can check out the iTunes or YouTube channels for this podcast. You can also subscribe to the audio version on Google Podcasts and follow us on Spotify and find us on Stitcher. You can stream any episode on my blog, multiculturosity.com. And for all the places that Didier Souillat and I mentioned, you can check out the show notes wherever you got this podcast. Hope you enjoyed this episode and see you again next week. Until then, sip something delicious, alcoholic or not, wherever you are.